body. I keep it inside of me. Yeah, I keep it inside. It's killing the man in me. Yeah, it's killing the man. Keep it in. Welcome to yet another episode of the Crisis of Manhood Podcast with me, your host, Peter Muguka. This is a space that has been designed to have those deep conversations that oftentimes as men we find it really difficult to talk about. And today we'll be looking at the subject understanding manhood. To help me unpack the conversation, I'm joined by none other than Bishop David Banda. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you. I mean, you and I have known each other for quite some time now. I think close to 9 years, 8 years, or more. Yeah, really, first of all, I think one of the things that I appreciate about your work is your passion for the community work. I know through your ministry, Grace Christian, and I'm sure you talk a little bit more as you introduce yourself, but I know that through that ministry, you've impacted so many lives in the communities. I think that's something that is very inspiring to see men who are, doing a lot in the community to ensure that we have sustainable and better communities. So appreciate that.
Thanks for those compliments.
And thank you for coming through to this podcast. So maybe for the sake of the viewers, you can just introduce yourself, so that people can get to know you, sir.
Oh yeah. Once again, thanks for having me. Really been looking forward to being here. I'm David Banda. For those I know the viewers who may not know this face, um, I am David Banda and I'm a believer. I'm born again and married to one. I almost said it girl. She's a girl now. Married to Annie. And together we have several children. It's we don't like to count. You know, there are those biological and spiritual.
Yeah.
And so we just say we have several several children and privileged to be grandfathering now. Yeah, so I'm like you mentioned, I'm serving the Lord with Grace Christian Center, based right here in Lusaka, Matero to be specific. Yeah, so our passion really is to see that the kingdom of God is advancing, and our mission is to impact lives of people one by one through the preaching of the gospel and, of course, discipling people. And we also believe that church, if church is family, then there must be church at home. So there's an emphasis that we place on people practicing church at home. Yeah, and so we have this passion and desire to see that communities are well impacted because the church is the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So we believe that church is not just for Sunday, 2 hours or 3 hours. That's why we are so much involved in a number of community activities. One of those where we came to know each other when we were running with the Zambia Family Project. Yeah, so briefly, that's about me. And I love the Lord. I'm very passionate about family. And yesterday, my daughter was saying, but Dad, you need to publish that book. There's a book I've been writing on family. So we are believing God that we have it published.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe in the near future, I may touch a bit here and there about the same book.
Right.
So that's briefly about me.
Right. Thank you so much, Bishop. So to get us started, how would you define manhood?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I need to commend you, Peter, for what you're doing here. It's interesting to see how people with vision and passion, evolve and become more and more prominent in a specific space. So I must say once again, I'm so privileged to be here with you on this podcast. Yeah, coming to defining manhood. Yeah, when they say, no, he has a problem with his manhood.
Means something else.
They need some anatomy of what makes you a man. Yeah. Then there's, as I was looking at some notes on really what it is that we have to look at as the definition of manhood, uh, I found out that it talks much of the qualities that are supposed to be there. And so, to begin with, it's to do with responsibilities and behaviors. Uh, and also, it has to do with being a man. Um, so being a man goes beyond this biological thing. It comes with its it encompasses the aspect of such of maturity, for instance, responsibility. Uh, Leadership is a key thing about being a man, and also integrity and also strength. There's also, nowadays we are talking much about emotional intelligence. So all that encompasses manhood. And when it comes to spiritual, a real manhood as a spiritual leader. You are there as a priest, a prophet. You are there as a leader in your home. Yeah, so that's it. So when I look at everything about manhood and the initial plan that God had, it has to do with leadership. So, so a leader who is void of what I've just mentioned may not really, succeed as a leader. So manhood has a lot to do with all that, and where you have to endure certain things, certain people. Now, when people talk like this, there's a discussion around a man doesn't cry, but that's not really what I mean. There are certain things as a leader which you brave for the sake of the people around you. I think to me that's manhood. And if you look at it critically, you'll find that it's a role that you have to play in life. Okay. Manhood, yes.
Thank you for that elaborate definition. And maybe moving forward, um, we've seen that society has certain expectations for men or from a man. How has that changed over time? Like when you look at back in the day and now, how have those expectations changed for men?
Um, the dynamics of society sometimes uh, bring a lot of confusion when you talk about the originality of why God created us male and female. Yeah. I wouldn't want so much to delve into the, the issues of the devil fighting the originality of the initial intent of God for creating man. So with too much learning and wanting to balance up things in society, you find that we find a lot of challenges now to really spell out and see what is really the role of a man, who is a man here and who is a woman here. So the expectations of society from men has surely evolved to a level where people are even changing roles, changing who they really are as a man. They want to like be something else, you know. So it is all an onslaught to me on the family, the basics of the family. So we really have to know, much as the people are blowing whistles at us as to where we are going wrong as men, what we needed to do, and things like that. We need to get back to the blueprint, I think, in my view, and that is the Bible, as to what is it that is expected of me as a man. I hope I have answered this question adequately. I don't want to preempt some of the things that I may have to share today.
Please feel free wherever it takes you. So it helps me when you when you respond to some of the things that when you preempt,
Yeah.
it covers the questions that follow. Then I can just skip those. So please don't worry about that.
Okay.
Right. So maybe moving on. I know one of the biggest challenges that boys growing into adolescence and then transitioning into manhood, sometimes the biggest challenge is really understanding at which point do I become a man? Yeah. So could you say something about that? How do you
Yeah.
get there? How do you get to a place of okay, now I'm a man, I've
I'm a
become a
man.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's a real challenge, especially given that. But you know, when we look at our history, like where I come from, in the eastern province of Zambia, uh, there were certain things that elders were observing in a boy, you know, and when they start seeing those signs, for instance, the voice is becoming, you know, deep, and then they will know, Uyiromba, angamitisha, you know, and so they, because right through the upbringing of boys, there were uh, places where we were mingling with elderly people, you know, and eating with them, you know, and so we were being imparted with values and manners of being a boy. So at the time when you're now reaching your puberty as a boy, they could now tell you now, you need to observe, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, you know. Stay away from girls because they will, you know, when you start sleeping with girls, your nails will, you know, will grow longer, you know, and things like that. You won't have hair and stuff like that. So that's the way they were actually bringing us up. Now, in this modern time, there's a gap. I observe a very serious fatal gap between the boys that are getting into being men and the men. You know, we don't have deliberate fora where we are able to sit with our children and begin to like walk with them through their developmental stages. So it's very, very important, I think, for us, especially as fathers or as elders at church, as pastors, for us to have a keen interest in these boys, where we deliberately pull them closer and befriend them and begin to talk. You know, boys that are around me know, you know, my sons, they know. If you are closer to me and you are riding with me in my car, you are not supposed to be smelly. You understand? And so for you to avoid that, you need to know how to wash your body. You need to know how to clean up your armpits and things like that. So those are some of the things that we need to tell our young boys as they are transitioning into manhood. So the very fact that there are some hormonal changes that are taking place in them, and they begin to have this appetite for the opposite sex and stuff, that's the time when now we really need to know. We need to talk about that, because if we don't, somebody else will initiate them into something, and so they get into serious sexual addictions and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think transitioning into manhood from being a boy requires a closer monitoring by the men, the fathers on the boys.
You bring out such critical points, and that is about what is it called again? Rite of passage. It's where older men, help younger boys or younger men in terms of how they can transition into manhood. But that's not something that we see a lot today. I think there are a lot of men out there that are not taking deliberate steps to talk to the boys about manhood, about the expectations, about basic things, even as you mentioned, about hygiene, personal hygiene. That's something that I personally never had an opportunity to learn from someone, but just to see and just being inquisitive around my older brothers to learn about some of those things. What do you think is the challenge today that we have around boys failing to understand manhood? Because we see a lot of men that by age they're grown-ups, but they're exhibiting traits of boys is still in them. What do you think is the challenge there? Why are we where we are now?
Yeah, I think we are where we are now basically because of taking things for granted. That okay, this child is growing, this boy is growing, he's in grade 10 or whatever, and so all we are concentrating on is the academical progress of this boy, but then we forget that this boy is going to be a man. And there are things that he will need to be trained into. He will be required to be and to behave in a certain way as a man. So taking things for granted is one of those reasons, and also because through generations, modern fathers may have missed that opportunity of being tutored by authentic traditional elders. And by saying traditional elders, I'm not talking of just like village, because the environment varies from the village setup and the town setup. But we are the same people. That's why knowing where you come from and valuing where you come from biologically is very important, so that you pass on those traditions and norms and practices that actually made your father to be successful, even as in having you as a son who is now having a degree or whatever, and you are now having your own children. So we tend to, it just kind of slowly dissolves in us that we need to pass on these values. I think that's the challenge. We focus more on the academical side, and we don't really look at the boy holistically. How do we prepare him to be that kind of a man? So to me, it calls for deliberate steps, deliberate moves, like what you are pushing for here, where men, fathers must be present in the lives of their boys and even their daughters. Yeah. So, because there are certain barriers that were created traditionally, where, for instance, a father cannot talk to the boy to the son. They would rather refer him to the uncle. They're the ones who are going to like nurture this boy. But I believe that even from the biblical point of view, a father has a role to play as a father to impart real values in the son. Yeah, so those are the challenges I think that we just take it. No, we need to just adapt. Learn about Brazil and things like that. Yeah. So I think that's what I can say. If you leave me to talk too much, I'll be preaching the same one now.
We want to.
Because I started last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I have a forum at church where once in a month I have to sit with the boys, and my wife sits with the girls. And so we have the whole curriculum. We have to talk about everything, starting from how do you grow up, the issues of hygiene, dating, and career, whatever. So just where a boy has an idea, of how they are supposed to be, even as they get into real manhood.
And kudos to you for taking those deliberate steps. I think society needs that. And we need as many men and women to get involved. And so even as we are talking about that, I see one of the biggest challenges we have today is the fact that we live in a global village. And so what is happening in the US, for example, right now, people are learning about that here, and so I think there's also a challenge for these boys who are growing up trying to identify. And in the previous episode, we are looking at identity. And you see that these boys are not, they're struggling, because there's culture from the US, there's culture from the West, the East, the South, in Africa, and here back home in Zambia. So to pick which one is right and to navigate through that, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that the boys are facing. Even as you talk about, I think you briefly touched on the role of the father. Maybe you can just dive deeper into that in talking about how do then fathers come in, to shape the boys or to help them through that phase of manhood.
Yeah, if you're ready to tackle these issues, I think to me it hinges on fathering. Yeah. It hinges on fathering, and so it is very important for every man. By the way, when we talk about fathering, it's not restricted to the male parent. I like encouraging, because there are those single mothers who have to raise boys. It's quite a challenge, of course, at some point to begin to discuss issues of sexuality and so on. And by the way, what you just mentioned is quite a serious challenge that we are having now. There has been debates on having sexuality included into our curriculum here in our country, and not just here. I think should be all across Africa, and we have these gaps, and so society wants to just kind of fill them up and so on. But for me to raise a real boy, a real girl who is going to have an impact, it starts in the home. Yeah, it starts in the home. So the role of fathering, like I was saying, if maybe you are listening to this podcast and you are a single mother, you still have the authority to step in and give the boys those values that they need to grow with as real men, So I like coming up with acronyms for certain things for the sake of people to remember. So a father, for instance, I look at a father, the letter F, as a foundation. You as a father are a foundation. Everything, like I normally say to people that family is a platform where you stand. It's a podium where you stand to address society. So if family is cracky and shaky, surely you can never address society, no matter how you think you are clever or smart. So a father is supposed to be a foundation. A father is supposed to exhibit a faithfulness, for instance. Okay, so because children learn by observing. I think to me that is what is very, very important. Because we have fathers today who are, because of the economical challenges, they are away from home, they leave children asleep, and they come back home, they find children are sleeping. And that is the cycle right through the week. So what is it that you are going to do? So I talk about issues of, as a father, you are supposed to be faithful in every detail, okay? Because children are observing. And also, on letter A for a father, I talk about you being an anchor of the home. You know, the children must know, because dad is there, I think things will be okay. No matter how shaky it is, but things will be okay. Okay, so a father is supposed to have that, and also having an attitude of accepting children, accepting members of the family as they are, because people are different. So I also talk about issues of affirmation. As a father, what you say about your children, about your boys, matters a lot. You know, remember, you are fighting. You are not the only one fathering your child. They have to go to school. They have the internet. They have the television. And so, but your voice and your actions must be very firm so that they are able to. Yeah, so when you always affirm your son, you affirm your boy, you'll be a great guy, you'll be a great man, you know, that helps them, you know, in their upbringing. Yeah, so I also talk, I'm just rushing through this quickly. Also, as a father, you're supposed to be a teacher. And, you know, the teacher-learner relationship has to really grow. And for you to be able to really be a teacher, you need to make sure that you befriend. I thank God that early in my parenting, I learned the art of befriending my children, you know, so that whatever I'm able to teach, and you know, and being a pastor is a challenge. If your children cannot say amen to your sermon, then you are useless. You are wasting your time. So you have to also be a good teacher, you know, where you impart wisdom, truth, and understanding in them. So, apart from being a teacher, you have to be a trainer as a father. Now, training is not easy for the trainer and the trainee. That's the issue, you know. So you walk along with them and make sure that they observe what you're doing, and then you do what you expect them to do, things like that. So, as a father, also, you have to know you are the head. You are the head, as in people look up to you in their home, and much more your boy is looking up to you. I brag today, I'm staying at a farm and we're just settling, and so I find myself not really stuck in a number of things. I'm able to hold a hoe, I'm able to handle an axe, I'm able to do a number of things because my father trained me, you know. And if there's any degree my father left with me, it's those survival skills, you know, how to endure for, you know, for your family to, you know, to succeed. Yeah, so that's one thing that I'm really happy about. So as a father also, you are supposed to be handy, you know, or in helping. You don't just wait for, I know of some fathers in our neighborhood as we're growing up, who, when the children see that dad has come from work, they scamper around. They literally run away from the father. Now, if children see you as an enemy, for instance, how you would be able to pass on values to them. So, but when they see you as a helper, they say, wow, he has come. So if I had a problem with my homework, he's going to help me. If I have a challenge with this, he's going to help me. So a number of things that we can unpack on this acronym of father. And of course, letter E, we talk about you being an example, which is more or less what I've already talked about. Now, the last letter R about father, I discussed issues of being a restorer. Children make mistakes. Children go haywire sometimes, but then they need to have somebody who is able to restore them, restore their confidence, restore the self-worth in them, what your attitude towards them in, when they've made mistakes will matter a lot on how they'll be able to be restored and be able to be up and running again. So, having said all this about fathering, being a father, you have to be present. You have to be available. Whatever we've been discussing on this podcast, you'll find that it's the issue of being absent as a father. With the gadgets these days, you find that the family are in the same living room, but everyone is on their gadget. So everyone is in their own world. No discussions, no nothing, And so we sometimes want to leverage on times when we maybe go for an outing as a family and to reconnect, and yet we are together every day in the home. There are times we can be able to reconnect, so we really have to be deliberate when it comes to this. I pray that men and women who have to father children will really make deliberate steps to be available and make sure they monitor the growth of the children, especially in this case the boys, so that they become responsible. This issue of them getting the American culture and getting, I think it has really destroyed them. I'm actually almost getting lost now when you have to maybe travel on public transport, you're getting lost. Where are we really going? There's no respect. Some of our boys have no respect for the elders. But where is that coming from? It has to do with homes not having deliberate programs or culture where they talk about life in general. It's just about survival. As long as you're surviving, okay. As long as whoever you push along the way, whoever you injure, it's a mess. It's a mess. So it's quite a wake-up call for us as parents, no matter at what stage we are, to be deliberate and stay closer with our children, so that it's another thing. Somebody said, it's another thing to be famous, and it's another thing to have an impact. There are certain people who may have attained celebrity status, but what impact? It's just because maybe you have so many likings and so on social media, but who are you impacting? Because impacting lives has to do with you pouring your life into people so that they learn certain values from you. And that's the role that fathers and mothers are supposed to play in the bonds.
Wow, so that's so profound. And just to add on to that, I've seen that children at times are so afraid of their fathers. Like you mentioned, father comes home and they've scampered. They don't want to. So now, if that's the situation, when this boy child has certain issues, who do they talk to? And boys are also trying to find acceptance. They are looking at places where they can belong. And in most instances, they find themselves in gangs, because a peer will come to and say, oh, this is what is happening to you. Don't worry, come. You take them to a gang, and then, the gang will kind of feel like a family, like a home, and embrace them and introduce that boy child, into wrong things. And I think I'm glad you talked about it, about the importance of fathers taking deliberate steps to bring the children together, to find time and engage with family communion, if I can use that word. And maybe moving on before we conclude, what do you think? What do you think are some of the key values that boys and young men need to have even as they transition into adulthood?
Yeah, I think the key values first and foremost is having this sense of identity. I'm happy it was dealt with in the previous
episode.
Because when a boy knows who he is, it will help them, even as we are talking about them having a vision. It's very important for them to know and see themselves who they want to be in future. Okay, some of the key values that we emphasize in boys is integrity. Where you don't want to do anything that will offend you. Each one of us has a conscience, and we tell young men to say, look, don't do something that will keep troubling you, because guilt is the heaviest thing that one can ever carry. There's been a discussion on mental health here, and some of those are triggered by lack of integrity. You hit into things because of the wrong decisions you make, and then they begin to bother you. So it's better to have integrity upon themselves as young men. And also that helps them now to even know the boundaries. In their socialization with the opposite sex, you need to know the boundaries. So, and the other key issue that we encourage young men is hard work. There's a lot of laziness, lazing around. We know that for, somebody saying, look, hard work is a key thing. Whether you are following the devil, he wants you to work hard. Whether you are following God, he wants you to work hard. It's a very, very strong value where you embrace hard work, where you have used your initiative, because being a boy turning into a man, you are required to solve problems. And so hard work and being innovative and creative is very, very, very important. So I just needed to mention those few, because of time, we need a campfire to
back on these topics. It's really, I like to say that the topics that we have on this podcast, or the conversations that we have, cannot be exhausted within a space of 30-40 minutes. But I think it's important to just get these conversations started, so that in whichever spaces we are, we can be inspired and encouraged to talk about some of these things. And I hope that a lot of men that are watching this podcast right now take deliberate steps to kind of support the boys, but not just boys, it's children in general. I think every child needs that message from the dad, from the parents. But yeah, it's been a great conversation. I know there's a lot to talk about, but
yes.
we have to go. Maybe as before I let you go, any final words, anything that you want to share with the people that are viewing out there?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me once again, Peter. I think to us viewers, wherever you are around the globe, the main issue or the main calling that you have upon your life is to raise children that are really going to be impactful here on earth. And so, apart from all the spoiling that you can spoil them with at the mall and all those pizzas and ice creams, sit them down. Have deliberate programs to sit them down and talk to them, talk to them about real life issues. And my wife and I like saying, look, you cannot correct somebody who is not your friend. So we have made it a deliberate thing for us in our parenting journey to make sure that each and every child, in their diversities, they have a special place in our hearts as a friend. So befriending children is very important, and especially boys, because they tend to feel so much left out in this whole thing. There's a lot of emphasis on the girl child, and it's like it's set. The structures are already there for the girl child to grow up, they reach their puberty and stuff. Yeah, but for us men, we really need to be deliberate in the way that we raise our boys. So I think those should be my final remarks for now.
Thank you. I hope we can invite you to tackle on another key topic, whether it's an expansion on this same topic or another topic, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We have been talking about understanding manhood, and we talked about a lot of things, and one of the key things that we talked about that kept coming out was men taking intentional, deliberate steps to have the conversations with the children, with the boys, and guiding them, helping them through transitioning into manhood. We end here for now. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and also if this message has been impactful to you, don't forget to pass it on. It's bye for now.